Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of Spooky Week. Today we are doing the Elvira coffin bag. I ran into a few issues, so if you've got a domestic machine, I highly recommend not using all vinyl. But let's get into it. Alright guys, so I have only put stabilizer on the coffin shaped pieces. You can also see I ran out of embroidery thread, so I had to change colour. But we're going to use it because this is a tutorial and it's fine. So what I've done is I've cut out all the pieces, and because they're all just different shaped rectangles, or a lot of them are, I've written on there what they are. So this one is the handle, and this one is the back strap cover. So I've done all of that, and then I've pinned the matching linings together, because I just figured that this would be way easier and I can kind of see what's going on. So with that said, let's get started. So I'm starting with my outer slip pocket. So I'm just going to put these right sides together and stitch along the edge, making sure that we backstitch. And then I'm going to flip both sides over so that then the wrong sides are facing, and crease that there and then top stitch. So I'm going to crank it up to all the way up to 4 today, just because I like it. And then I am currently stitching 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And back stitch, and if you'd like to, you can do a second row. So I'm going to, because I think it's going to look cool. You'll notice I go a lot slower with the second one because I'm trying to make it the same. Now that second line wasn't necessary, but it looks cute. And it's a good way to practice your top stitching game. So I'm going to grab the one I didn't embroider on, because this is the back. And then I'm just going to, with some Wonder Clips, grab Scully. Which, by the way, thank you guys for naming Scully. I'm very excited it has a name, weirdly enough. So I'm just going to clip the 4 corners together, and I'm going to baste it down. Now, I don't usually clip, which is also why I'm not using a lot, but I don't want it to shift on me because it's not quite a rectangle. So I'm just going to stitch. I do still back stitch because always back stitch. I'm going to get a sticker here that says always back stitch because it's ridiculous and I think it's cool. And then stop with the needle down and pivot again. And then back stitch there. And that is your pocket on. Now the pattern says to cut 5 of these lining pieces. That's so that you can do this pocket on the inside of both sides of the bag. I ran out of my awesome Star Wars fabric, so I won't be doing any more of those pockets. But that's how you do them on the inside. So exactly the same, just it'll be both lining fabric. Unless you've got like a cool accent fabric you want on the inside. Now, I'm not putting that away yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 like mini coffin shaped ones. And we're going to draw a zipper box. Where's my ruler? There she is. So she just says put it anywhere. So I'm going to put it in line with here. Well, maybe I'll put it higher. I don't think it really matters. Wherever. And then I always do 3/8 of an inch down because I'm using size 5 zipper tape. If you're using a thinner zip, just make your hole thinner. And also don't make it go all the way to the edges. So I've just literally made it up. But we don't want it too close to the edges because we still have to sew the other piece on. Oh, I missed. That's okay. So I'm going to line up at the sides. Sorry, I'll turn it around so you can see. I'm going to line this point up with this point. So this is really hard to do upside down, just FYI. There. And then I'm just going to stitch around the box with a short stitch length. So for me is 2.5. And then needle down and pivot. So I've decided my Lord of the Rings bowl is now to hold hardware because it needs a job in life. And just more Wonder Clips wasn't cutting it for me. So it's now my hardware prep bowl, which will normally live here where you guys can't see it. Alright, so I'm going to take my Class A scissors, and it does kind of matter because there's a lot of thickness going on here. My Fiskars ones won't like it. I love my Fiskars scissors to cut things out, but cutting out this, it's not going to like it. So we're not going to use them. Because we've got stabilizer and fabric and vinyl here. So this is very, very thick. So I'm just triangling out my corners. And so then once I've done this, because this is really thick, I don't think this is going to turn too well. So what I'm going to do is come over to the back, get my $4 Bunnings scissors. Very proud of the fact that they were $4 because they cut so well. Then I'm just going to cut the stabilizer off inside the box. Otherwise it's going to be too thick and I don't think it's going to sit nicely. So I'm literally just going to hack it off and throw it in the bin. Because it's such a small amount, it does apparently peel off my vinyl quite well, which is nice. So I'm just getting as close to those stitches as my scissors will let me. So the thinner your scissors are, the closer you'll get. And with that gone, I feel like this next step is going to go a lot better. So I'm just going to push the whole pocket through the hole. And then from the back, I'm going to pull on my lining fabric. And then probably with a ruler, I'm going to score that edge. I don't want to use the iron because I don't want to risk ironing my vinyl, because that would also suck. So I'm just pulling on it, bending it with my fingers, and then scoring the edge. So it might try and fight you a little bit, but that's because of all the thickness to make the bag stand up. You'll be right. I have faith that you'll be able to do it. Alright, so now take some zipper tape that is as wide as your pocket. What this is going to do is sew our raw edges into the seam so I don't have to think about them. If you don't want to do that, what you'll need to do is put some kind of a covering on the edge of the zipper so that it won't fray or carry on in any way, shape or form. Now I'm just going to melt these ends because otherwise it'll fray and have a meltdown. And while that won't necessarily matter once it's in the bag, it matters when you're trying to put your zipper pull on. So you're just going to split your zip, just like, I don't know, a couple of inches, not too far. And then you put one side in exactly halfway. So the halfway point is where that inside, if you look down into it, there's like a bar. You just want to line it up there and then you can literally just pull the zipper on. So you don't have to have a zipper jig, but it is quicker. And I'm still convincing hubby to do the video. I need to go buy like another clamp and stuff so that we can do a video actually. All right, so I'm just gonna lay that over the top. Now, because it's being stubborn, you may or may not want to use some double-sided tape. I'm not gonna let it defeat me, so let's do this. So what I'm gonna do is, as I sew, I'm just gonna tug slightly on the lining to make sure that it's out of my way. Whoop. And I always like my zippers closed to the left of a bag. So that's something that I've thought of as I've put this zipper on. Now I'm up to the zipper. So what I want to do is I want to zip it out of my way. So just go past where you've sewn. If I went backwards, I'd have to stop and adjust again. So that's why we're not doing it that way. So by tugging on the lining, I've actually pulled it so you can't really see it at all, which is what we want. And this is one of those slow and steady wins the race type deals. And then I'm back up to the zipper pull, so I'm going to zip it down out of the way. And again, I'm just using this hand to tug on the lining from the underneath. And I believe they're shooting big guns again, so I apologize for the random banging, but it is out of my control until such time as we get reposted and I move. And even then, it might still happen, who knows. Okay. Trim your tails. That came out pretty good. I like it. So now we're just going to take the matching piece and put that right sides down, and we're going to stitch all the way around this because we don't need this open. So I'm going to do the vinyl side up so I can just kind of pull it over out of the way as I sew. And then turn. Make sure you catch that zip. And turn. Backstitch at the end. Trim your tails. Yay! Alright, so now I'm going to go on to what's next on my list. Top front zipper gusset. And then I want a side front zipper gusset. So there should be two different thicknesses. So the zipper for this bag doesn't sit in the center, it sits more to the front so that you've got like a deeper space at the back. I like that. Dare to be different. So it's going to have a front and a back of everything. So instead of cutting two for each side, one will be thicker, one will be thinner. So what I'm going to do is crank it back to a joining stitch length. And this was my bowl that stopped printing in the middle of the night because my computer had an update. So I use it for my other clips because I don't want to throw it out. Okay, so we want to take a top and a side and put those right sides together. Now, you have to stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So, a couple of things you can do if you're new to sewing and really want to make this bag. Option 1. Take a ruler and a pen. Oh, I grabbed a texter, not a pen. So grab a ruler or a pen and literally mark on your fabric 1/2 inch. So take a ruler, rule a line. That color's dead. I ran out of blue. Right? Literally on all of your pieces, go ahead and rule your seam allowance on all of it. Definitely a good option. Option 2, take your ruler and stick it under your machine and touch. Obviously don't put your foot anywhere near your pedal, you'll snap your needle. But touch the needle so it's on the 1/2 inch mark, and then take a permanent texter and mark it on your table. Now this mark, funnily enough, will not last forever, even though it says permanent marker, because it does eventually wear off. So you can put it as long and as thick as you like. Make sure you crank your needle up before you pull it out, or you'll wreck the point of your needle. So that's another way. So that is now 1/2 inch, so I can run my fabric up against that. Option 3, and I haven't talked about this before because I've stopped using it. When I first started on this machine, my plate has no markings, and I wasn't aware that you could buy one with markings. So I bought this bad boy for $1. It's like a really heavy duty magnet, so I could literally just put that up against, oh, see, really heavy magnet, on that mark that I just did. So you do the same thing where you stick your ruler under and put that there, and now the fabric, you just butt it up against the magnet. Now it's strong enough that it takes quite a lot of force to get it off there. So I'll do one with the magnet just so you can see how it works in case anyone is confused. So we'll put it over this side. So you just run it up against it. Back stitch, up against it, back stitch. And you can see, this is the side we didn't see, I've run exactly along the mark. These are all fun options. Take your pick. I'm going to leave that there just for funsies because it amuses me. All right, so this one was our top one. And then we need to attach both sides to this as well. And I would personally chain stitch this. It's a bit late now, but I'm still going to try. So I would grab my top back piece, because you can't really get them confused. They're different thicknesses. And then take side back, line it up, run it under. Having the magnet there, I promise, it's a lot less thought process. Which I know sounds ridiculous. That's your seam allowance. Bob's your uncle. I'm going to top stitch them in a minute. I'm going to pull this one out because I can't join it. So this is my top, so then I'm going to join this onto here. And this is why we named them all. You could also make, if you're going to make lots of these, instead of writing this every single time, you could make little like placard things that just say it, and then you could clip it to it as well. And if you laminate them, they'll last you ages. Okay, so the downside to this is I'm going to have to move it when I want to top stitch because it will get in my way. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. This will eventually rub off onto fabric, so that's a con. So if you use a lot of white lining, you probably don't want to do this option. If you've got a Dremel, you could probably cut that line in a little bit, but then you'll have to sand it, make sure it's really smooth, or it'll catch your fabric. So, I mean, pros and cons to everything. So, top stitching. I'm going to do 1/8. You can do whatever you like. I like 1/8 because it's going to catch that seam underneath and it's going to be decorative and pretty. Even though this bag has actually already got a home. I haven't even made it, but I told them about it and they want it. So I'll be giving it to them for free because the embroidery is a bit of a funny color. It's fine. So I'm just opening out this seam and finger pressing it open and then going up under the machine, back stitching, because we always back stitch. If a seam ever gets cut, at least you know your back stitching will hold it. And you only need like 2 stitches. Oops. Trim your tails. So that is now done and glorious. So let's do the next one. And again, finger press it open. Stick it under. Hear that? That is because my machine doesn't like back stitching this week. If I go too fast, it has a bit of a moment where the bobbin overwinds itself. Alright. Oh, here's a new one. I've managed to knot the top thread through the needle hole. I don't even know how I did that. It's a new one for me. It's literally tied on there. It's cool. I'll get it off. Also, a bit of sewing machine trivia. If you've never watched one of my videos, welcome. Did you know that you're only supposed to do 9 hours of sewing on a domestic needle? Because after 9 hours, the end is actually like super blunt, and under a microscope it's bent and crooked. So if you're ever having issues with your stitching just out of nowhere, the first thing you should do is change your needle, because if your needle's got a burr from too much stitching, that will be wrecking your thread. So if you're a big sewer, just change it once a weekend would be my suggestion. If you sew a weekend, once a weekend. I mean, they're not that expensive, and it's better than wrecking a machine. I think my needles, these needles here, I think cost me 35 cents each, because I just bought like a lot of them. I found somewhere that stocked them, and I was like, stocked up. Okay, so that's 2. So then we're going to do the same to the lining. So even though I don't have them labeled anymore, there's 2 of these and 1 of this one. So obviously these 2 get attached to this one. Again, if you get confused at all, just make little tabs that you can clip to them. And then I'm going to take one of these so I can chain stitch it. Chop this one off, chop your tails. Under the machine. I like the chain stitching idea because you really do waste so much less thread. I'm also not paying attention to the direction of my fabric because it's non-directional. That's not me being lazy, it's just non-directional. Okay. Boom. So you should now have 2 that look like this. So this is going to be your zipper. So we're going to grab some zipper. Now because I do zipper by the meter, I don't cut it off until I'm done. You also may want to press these open. I'm just going to finger press them open so that they sit nice. Right, so I'm going to put lining right side up, zipper right side up, and then make a sandwich and put right sides down. Now, if you're new, you know what, I'll do it because you might be new to sewing. Normally, I would just stitch this. But if you're new, what you want to do is you want to line up the edge, add a clip. Then you want to come along and probably put 1 in the middle, at least. Now, there's no right or wrong amount of clips. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. But what we want to do is we want to line up this seam there. Clippity clip. See, I already need more clips there. Right. Then we're going to come along and we're going to line up the next seam. Now, if you don't like clipping, don't. Or if you just like minimal clipping, all you really have to do is clip at this seam. And then you can just go seam to seam to seam. But since this is a tutorial, I should do it, you know, the correct way. At least on one side. Now again, my fabric's not directional, so because it's vinyl, it doesn't have a top and a bottom. Well, this one doesn't. So I don't need to worry about which side I want to be at the top. Line up the ends. All right. it is together. It is glorious. So under we go. I always like to have my vinyl on top. That's just my personal preference. I don't know. I think that you can feel the teeth better from this side. But if you like it the other way, do it the other way. And then back stitch. And then trim your tails. And then you can cut off your excess zip, because that's obviously where it needs to be. And the other ones should be the same size, therefore it should all fit. Don't put your zipper tape away though, because we will need some more for the inside zipper pocket. Alright, I'm going to trim my tails up this end as well. And then we're going to fold this out, and I'm going to stitch both backwards like this. And then I'm going to crank it up to my decorative stitch length, which today is 4, just for something different. There's not a lot of a difference between 4 and 3 3/4, but I just like to do it. So, the bits you may struggle with is where the seams are joined. If you're in a domestic, you should potentially trim them away. So before we did our top stitching, trim the seam away and then top stitch it, because it won't be as thick. So I'm just tugging on the lining and the top. So I've got it pinched like this, and I'm just pulling it away from the zip. So it's going to sit straight. If you're not making your bag in vinyl, you could definitely iron this. It's probably going to help. And back stitch. Oh, and I just ran out of bobbin thread. That's okay. Here's one I prepared earlier. I don't want to jinx it, but at this stage, I think I've got everything we need for the whole video. Although I'll probably need another bobbin now. You watch. I only did 1 extra one, not 2. Chop that bit off. I also haven't made one of these before, so at some point I may have to stop and read the pattern. You just never know. Okay, so trim off your tails. I didn't trim a tail. Look, it's sticking out. Or I just didn't trim it enough, either or. Okay, one side is on, so now we're going to do the same to the other side. So again, we're going to flatten out these seams. It's not just so my machine will go over it, it's also so the bag sits flatter. If you've got both to one side, you're going to have like a chunky bit. So it's always nicer not to. Now again, I don't have directional fabric, so I don't care which side is attached. But if you do care, you should check that. So some people like their fabric going the same way. Some people like to have it coming both away from the zipper. World's your oyster, you do you. Now, you'll notice I'm only clipping one on at a time, because I also want to line up this seam with the other side. So I find it easier to do one at a time, personally. So like that. And then we can take the other one and put it right sides down like a sandwich. And line that up. And then you just want to check to make sure that it's in line. If you're new to sewing and it's slightly off, it's cool because it's the corners. But if you're more advanced, these are the types of things you should be aiming for. You want it to match up. But again, if it's like a little bit out, don't think you're going to notice. So don't stress about it. You should see some of the first bags I made. They were so bad I deleted the pictures. But it was together and I was proud. And that's a good thing. Because it was great for the skill level that I was at. Alright, clipped. And then if we flip that over, see the seam? It's all like together. That's what we want. So again, I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length. Oops. Now this is not the order the pattern does it in. The order of the pattern does all the back first, but I like to eliminate pieces where possible. Trim your tails. Clean up your clips as you go. And so again, look at that. Beautiful. We're going to pull it back. You can even, so I could probably press this from the back because it is fabric. I'm not going to, but I could. And then again, we're going to stitch, and I'm doing the 4mm stitch length again. So these things are really, really cool. Spotlight have fun ones. They're like shaped like animals and stuff. You can get some that look like sewing machines. They come in colors. I'm sure somewhere on eBay or Amazon there's a rainbow one with like a rainbow finish. Because I know the world loves rainbow at the moment. Okay, so before we go any further, we want to put our zipper pulls on. Mainly just because you don't want to forget. Now I'm using 2 so that you can zip the bag open both ways. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just put 1 on, but you just want to think about, because the short side's the front, so you want to think about which side you want it to end on. For me, I'd be putting it on the other end. Come on. There we go. See, it can be done. It just takes me a little bit longer. With my zipper pull, I'm just like... But I was keeping it here and I poked myself in the face twice. So I nearly did it a lot on camera. So it has moved to the other side where I won't hurt myself. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to put your zips together and make sure that there's no bubbling. So if there's like a bubble on one side, pull it off and readjust it. But that's done. Also, what I'd be inclined to do is, because I've used the ring pulley ones, I would be hanging a dangle off here. I'm just trying to look and see if I've got any Star Wars ones. I don't, but hanging a Star Wars pull off here would be really fun. Alrighty. Handle. Let's go with handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put double-sided tape down the center. Now you guys always ask me where I get it from and what type it is. It is just cheap from the reject shop. So it's $2.50 for 25 meters. And I got a skinny one also from the reject shop. I think that was $2, but it's got less on it. And it's skinny, so it's only like 3mm. Also from the reject shop. If you're in the US, I think a lot of people go to Wawak, or however you pronounce that, to get their double-sided tape. You can also get Quilter's double-sided tape from Spotlight, so it's sewing machine friendly. This one's not, but I just do it anyway, because I've had no issues. Okay, so I folded both sides into the center, because I didn't tell you what I was doing, I just assumed you were watching. And then I'm going to fold it in half again, and I'm going to top stitch down both sides. So that way that there's no raw edges showing. So I'm going to go with size 4 stitch length. I'm going to back stitch. And I'm doing it 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And I mainly do that because it's the center of my foot. So it's an easy way to tell what I'm doing. Back stitch. Other side. Now this is the side with the sticky tape in it, so don't rush 100 miles an hour. You're more likely to snap a needle because it'll get stuck to your tape, so you just go nice and slowly on this side. I've actually snapped the needle because of that, so that's why we don't do that anymore. Okie dokie, so that is handle done. So we're going to take our back strap cover, And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the handles. I'm going to put some more double-sided tape in the middle. And I just like to rub on the end. The heat helps it to stick to the vinyl, which makes the backing come off a lot easier. I have a love-hate relationship with fake nails. I love them because they're longer because I can hold stuff better while I'm sewing. But I also really suck at anything sticky tape related with them. So I was packing orders before this, and I had to use the snips to pull the sticky tape off itself because I couldn't get it. Okay, so this is going to cover all of our straps. So now we're going to grab the front and the back straps. Now I am not doing the foam. I did bring the piece over to show you. I just am not. There's no real right or wrong reason. I don't want super puffy handles. That's not who I am. But that's okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in. So again, double-sided tape. Lots and lots of double-sided tape. I should buy shares in this stuff. So I do it to all four. Now you will notice that one is longer than the other. And before I read the pattern, I was like, what? Just bear with me because it's okay. Okay. I'm also going to put a link to my chair because I know about a bunch of you are about to ask me that. I'm just swiveling on it. I'm like, oh, I love them. The ball bearings are so smooth, which is a weird thing to be excited about, but I'm doing it anyway. Okay. Into the center we go. Now, if you've done foam, you would just be folding over foam, which is also fine. So that's a long one, and then this is a short one. So I'm going to do one of each and then stitch it, mainly because I don't want the double-sided tape to pop, because then I have to go and re-stick everything, and I'm lazy. I don't like to have to do things twice unnecessarily. So I'm just smoothing it along. You also notice I'm not drawing a line in the center. I used to be really bad at this, and then I got good. So what you do is you pinch it in the center and then push down. And it just, I don't know, works. But if you're new, definitely draw a line in the center and then you can fold each side up to it. Handles. So one side's longer than the other deliberately. So what we're going to do is I actually think that I'm going to stick another piece of double-sided tape down the center and hold them in place, just so it doesn't shift. I'm also not going all the way to the edge. The short bit will be fine. It's just the wider part. I don't want it to move. So smooth that down. See, it's not stuck yet. Come on. There we go. And then put your wrong sides together. And at the bottom, you're going to have a little bit of extra hanging off, and that's okay. So, my stitch length's still decorative on 4. And off we go. Now, if you've got foam in, this will probably sit a little bit differently because of the foam. But that's okay. So I'm going to stitch all the way down to the end. You're not going to see this bit till later, but that's okay. You can even just go across because it's quicker than chopping it off. And then back up the other side. And then back stitch, and then trim your tails. And I'm sure you're all sick of me saying it by now, but with any luck, you do it. All right, other strap. Now I'm not worried about those raw edges that we just saw, because we've still got to attach some hardware, and that's what that extra bit's for. Push it down to the center. And again, you just see me rubbing it a little bit. That'll heat the glue up enough to help it be more adhesive. Especially because I'm sure it's not designed to be sticking vinyl together. If you're doing your straps in fabric, you could iron them. And then you wouldn't need the double-sided tape. And then down and smooth. Like so. And then again, another piece of tape. Put it on the short one, so you don't go past the point, or you'll just have like a random bit of sticky. Join them up at the top, stick them together. This would be really fun if I had have done opposite colors too. This would have looked really fun. So you could do like one color on the back and a different color on the front, because you will see a little bit of it, and it would be a fun accent. And back stitch. And stitch down and across. And up the other side. Back stitch. Oh, I know what I didn't grab. The placement piece for all of this. All right. So we're going to go back to our back piece. And we're going to place our handles. I just got a bit of a tail that got stuck in there. So I'm just going to trim it off so we don't see it. So we're going to hide these raw edges anyway, which is why we didn't tuck anything under. So our handles are going to go like this, but they're going to come up and over like this. So we need our pattern piece, which is over there. So give me a sec. All right, got it. So probably what I could have done off camera before I did all this was mark where it's going to go. So I'm just going to mark it in the seams. So there and there, and then just shift it over a little bit so I can see. So long as this is in the seam allowance, it won't matter. I've done like the world's tiniest little dots, but they are in pen. So it is permanent. You can also use like a chalk pen and rule the line all the way across. It's another option for you. So, handle. I like my join to go in the middle. So the outside is smooth where people look. So I just want to put it in the middle. So the easiest way to find the middle is to fold it in half and clip it. Don't use your snips to clip it, because you'll get yourself and cut your hand, and it takes like a week to heal because it's on your finger. It's just not ideal. So just don't do it. All right, in. And then I'm just going to stitch it on. So actually, for beginners, sorry, I'm just doing what I would normally do. For beginners, now that you've got your marks, grab your chalk, pen, Chaco pen, I think they're called. Very cool. It's chalk, so it comes off. It drops a lot of dust. as you can see, but you can just blow on it and most of it goes away. See? Crisis averted. Also, when we're finished, it will come off. So, bend it in. There's your center. So you just want to make sure that these are going to be within that line. So our top piece is going to go across like this. So we need to make sure that these won't be seen on the raw edge, especially if you've done a fabric instead. So I'm just going to line mine up and probably come half an inch down past the line. And I'm going to stitch probably 1/4 of an inch in from the line so that you won't see my stitching. And I'm just going to baste it in place. Like that. Nothing dramatic. You may want to, if you're like an intermediate sewer, you may not need your lines yet. And you can just kind of put it in there, but it's in. Then we're going to take our handles. Now we want this side, the longer side, to be on top so that when we stick our hardware on, it's going to tuck under and you're not going to see the join. But we want to go up this way. So I am going to leave a gap between my handle and my shoulder strap, but I also want to make sure that it's not in our seam allowance to the side. So I'm only leaving a very small gap. Again, I'm going to have it down in line with the handle, so the excess probably 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to stitch it 1/4 inch from the line so that we don't see any of this. It's all just holding placement things. It's like tacking it all in place. I'm also still just on a long stitch length because it's a tacking, basting idea. Trim off your tails. So that's one. Gonna do the same to the other side. So when it's laying down like this side will be up so that when we stitch it on, it's gonna be down. So we're gonna come in underneath here again, leave a gap, and then stitch. Back stitch. Now if you've got a domestic, this is a lot of vinyl to stitch through, so make sure you go nice and slowly. And to be honest, this is not actually all that much stronger than a heavy duty domestic. It's not as heavy as like a Juki with a walking foot. Alright, so now this lines up along those lines. Like so. There's a little bit extra hanging at the side, but that's okay, so I can trim it off later. I'd prefer it to be there and not need it than need it and not have it. Stitch forward. I'm going to back stitch when I get to the main panel. Now, again, beginners, I probably should have done this. Double-sided tape this on so it stays where you want it to. If you're intermediate, you could probably do it my way. But double-sided tape is your friend. And then we're just going to stitch along nice and slowly to make sure that I'm not missing anywhere and my machine's not going to skip stitches and be an idiot. Because I could hear it and it was thinking about it. And then we're going to do the next side. So you can sew it from the other way if you want to. I want to, so these aren't in my way. Stitch, back stitch. This side's easier because there's nothing in that seam. And then just to keep in sync with my double pocket, I'm actually going to do a double stitch because it's pretty. You can skip this. Don't think that it's a necessity. It's just pretty and I want to. So I'm doing it 1/8 of an inch from the original and I'm still back stitching because I'm always back stitching. Not super worried about these tails this time around because in actual fact I'm about to cut them off. I'm going to do a double stitch along the top as well because it's pretty. Again, you can skip this step. But if you were doing like an opposite color like I am, it's like a nice contrasting look. Something to think about anyway. And backstitch. I'm gonna grab my Class A scissors, I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna chop off the excess in line with the outer piece. Not only did I chop off my tails, I chopped off all the excess. So everything's back to being the same glorious size. Ta-da! So then these handles will come over and clip into stuff. So we're gonna add that hardware now while we're here. So I've got square rings. The pattern uses D rings. You can use either. World your oyster. I'm using square rings because it's going to have the stuff going through it. I've also got square rings for the bottom and my strap adjusters here. So all you do, slide it on, bend it up, stitch it down. Ta-da! Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So because it's vinyl, I'm just going to butt it up against the other piece so that it's sitting gloriously, and just stitch along the same line I had before. Like that. Beautiful. Next, again, slide it on. Now, not that it matters, but I'm sliding on where the join is on this piece, because then you really just won't see it. Each to your own though. And I'll actually be using webbing like the pattern says for a change. But you could also just make your own straps. Depending on how thick your hardware is, you could either just do an all vinyl strap or half vinyl, half fabric to do a fabric accent. I've got a little bit of chalk dust, but I'm going to wipe that off later. So then we just need to do our bottom connectors, which are in my pile somewhere. I literally wrote on them strap connectors because I'm all over this. There is two. I will find my other one in a minute. All right, into the center. That wasn't quite the center. And then I'm going to top stitch down the center because I think it's pretty. Again, you can skip this step if you want to, or you can stitch 1/4 inch from the edge instead. There is no right or wrong, just pretty. Okay, so then this hopefully will fit my strap connector like so. And then we just attach it to this point right here. You want to do it on an angle usually. So there, on an angle, and then I'm just going to base that on so that it stays and I don't have to think about it again. Now again, if you're using a domestic, you might want to make these out of fabric because we're getting thicker and thicker. Okay, where's my other one? There should be 2 of these and 2 of those. Maybe this one is it. I'm always losing pieces. I need another table, except there's no room to sit them on. That's cool. See, I just think that that's that one. Alright, I'm going to find that in a minute. I'm going to pop it aside and continue on. So, back to these pieces. You should have one bottom. You should have 2 side pockets, but I'm just doing one because I want a bit of asymmetry to my bag. which I know is not a normal thing for me, but that's what I've decided. So these are going to be attaching to our zipper. But first we're going to do the pocket. Why? Because we just are. So all I want to do is put right sides together and stitch along that top edge. So if you've got directional fabric, make sure we're stitching the top, not the bottom, or your pocket will be upside down, which is not ideal. If you're doing a second pocket, chain stitch the second pocket in. And then we're going to fold over both sides. And I'm going to do my double top stitching because I'm keeping the theme of double top stitching everywhere because it looks cool. Back stitch, top stitch, back stitch, flip. Boom. Pocket. Grab a side, any side. Again, if you're using fabric, make sure it's directional in the right direction because that matters. And then clip it on or just baste it on. I'm going to clip it to be good. I don't normally clip it. I normally just sew it. Look at me go. Right. So you should have 2 of these. I only have one because I only have one pocket. And that's also a lot to do with the fact that I ran out of the fabric. And I don't even have anything that would like closely match. And this was like from last year or 2 years ago or a long time ago. I don't know. It's an old print that I can't get anymore. So I can't even pop down and buy some. Not that popping anywhere is near me. But anyway, right. Side pocket. So now, the bit that doesn't have the pocket is going to attach to this bit. Right along here. So clip it on. Right sides together. Now I'm going to be finishing this bag a little bit differently to the pattern. Just because I think it might be easy for you guys. So, that being said, it means that I get to stitch all the way across here, which is not something that we normally do. Normally, I would make you separate the lining. What's going on here? Yeah, no, that's right. Normally, I would make you separate the lining, but, oh no, I've just put it on the wrong side. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Right, let's start that again. Too busy talking. Right. Normally, what I would get you to do is separate the lining here and stitch there, and then stitch there, and then do the same to the lining. But because I'm going to be sealing it with bias tape on the inside, well, actually, yeah, close enough, we're just going to do it all together. So you want to put the vinyl side with the vinyl side, and then the fabric side with the fabric side. Not what I was doing before. I was too busy talking. It's a thing that I do. Sorry. At least I didn't stitch it. That would have been worse. I hate unpicking things. Alright. Again, same seam allowance everywhere to make it fit. Now, if you've got a domestic machine, you might want to cut on an angle some of this seam allowance out. I'm going to do it to show you what I mean. Like that, and like that. So then when you're sewing the edge, it's not so thick. Okay, so now we're going to do the same to the other end. So lining side to lining side. Again, thinking about your fabric if it's directional. But again, mine's not, so it doesn't matter. And then grab your outside piece and attach it. Use as many clips as makes you happy. Look at us go. It's looking fabulous. Back stitch. Back stitch. Make sure your needle's all the way up and it'll slide out. If you ever wonder why it's not pulling out properly, it only works if your needle's all the way up or all the way down. Trim off your excess at the seam to make it more manageable. Like so. And so now we got this going on. I like it. So last piece for the loop is your base. Yeah, where's my clip bowl? Over there now. I keep moving them. And I missed. That's okay. So I'm going to take my bottom lining, and if you want to clip it together, under we go, back stitch, over we go. And then if you want, you can chain stitch this. So grab this one. Now the bottom piece is like only 1 inch different, but if it doesn't line up, you're holding it the wrong way. It's pretty self-explanatory on that one. And then chop off this side. And then making sure that there's no twists in your loop, we're going to close the loop. And I'm chain stitching because I like to be efficient and not waste thread. And so again, make sure there's no issues. And then we're going to close that. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to top stitch on the outer pieces because I've done it everywhere else and I want it to look good. So I'd just like to point out the fact that my line that I drew on there is already starting to fade. These things happen. Okay. Up to my decorative stitch length. Now I'm going to stitch a few places. I'm going to do 2 stitches along here. I'm going to do 1 each side of that seam, 1 each side of that seam, and 2 along here. And that's because then everything's going to match in lots of 2. And I just want it to be pretty. And don't be scared of top stitching. You can't get good at it if you don't practice it. It's not how life works. Stitch forward, back stitch, off we go. Back the other way. Trim your tails. Oh, missed. Alright, so then this one, open the seam so it's flatter for you. If you're on a domestic, trim this down on the angle like we did before. And then do it. And again, you can skip this step if you truly are new to sewing and you don't want to even try. That's okay. It's not going to damage your bag by not doing it. Or if you're in a hurry, because this video has already been going for over an hour. I just dropped all the other pieces on the floor. Okay. This is the pocket piece. So this piece is a bit thicker. So I'm actually going to trim down the pocket piece. Less bulk just makes it easier. And so then, if you flip it out, double check. I've just got to do this one here. So I'm making this all point down, so it's also going to help it sit down and be nice and flat. Did you hear that? I heard that. There'll be a rat's nest on the back of this. See? That's okay. It's on the back. We're not going to see it. I'm not worried. Look at that. Your gusset is done. So I'm going to zip it open now so I don't forget later. And then we're going to go on to all the lining pieces, which I dropped. Right. So, if you've done your pockets for your inside, you make the pockets now and attach them. So you should have another 4 lining pieces, and that will do 2 pockets. And yes, we have 4 pieces, but watch why. So wherever you want to put your zipper pocket, that's where we're going to draw it on. I just make it up as I go along sometimes. As long as it's even and straight. So I'm going to put it like right here. Oh, blue's working on this pen. That's exciting. Blue's the first colour I run out on my 4 pens, and then I have to like remember to use all the other colours. That must be my new one. Okay, so take another lining piece and just put it right sides together. And then you want to make sure that all your edges are lined up. If you want to clip it together, pin it, whatever. And then we're going to sew the box. So I'm going to start in a corner, true forward, true back, lock your stitches, needle down and pivot. Needle down and pivot. Trim your tails. Like that. Scissors, fold it. So I actually just bring it down to the corner of my bench because it helps me to pinch it easier. And if it's ever too thick, just squeeze the other end of your scissors. It helps. Okay, so then we're just going to take one piece, it doesn't matter which one because they're all the same theoretically, and we're going to push it through the hole. And then finger press this down. I think I'm going to buy a mini iron. That's where I'm at. Get a mini iron and have another table here somewhere. Alright, I'm finger pressing right at the seam so that I can install my zipper. This is my last zipper, actually. So it should be the same size on both sides. So no matter which way you flip it, and then you can just pick whichever side you like more and do it there. So, zipper tape. My zipper scissors are over there and I refuse to stop the video if I don't have to. Played that game yesterday. Oh, that caught on fire. That was new. Doesn't usually happen to me. Okay. Don't need any more zipper tape. I can go back in my zipper thing. Okay, so again, zipper. You know what? Zipper pull. I like to stand over my zippers. I don't know, it's a thing. When hubby first made it for me, it was like extra, extra high. Nope, that missed. So that went on crooked, so I'm just pulling it off and doing it again. There we go. Okay, so again, I like my zips to close to the left. So that's just something that I think about. You might like them to go the other way. I don't know. Then we're just going to stitch around the zipper. Now I can hear I'm running out of bobbin thread. The more you sew, the more you become in tune with your machine. You can hear when it's doing stuff. And I can hear that the bobbin is loose, which tells me it's nearly empty. So I'm just watching it, because I don't actually want to run out. That would be annoying. Alright, so now that we've done that, we've got our zipper pocket and it's beautiful. So we're going to take another piece and baste all the way around. So that is going to give us a backing for our zipper pocket now. And that will be our back. So, line them up. I know I'm going to run out, but I may as well use it all. I'm getting further than I thought I would. That's exciting. You just want to line up all your edges. So this time I'm not clipping, just to show you how to kind of speed sew it a little bit. I swear I thought it was going to run out. I can hear it. Anyway. So I'm just make sure that I'm stitching within the seam allowance. There it goes. No? Now I'm confused. Oh no, look. That's it. See? I knew I could hear it go. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to hit pause and I'm going to do another bobbin. And I'm going to find the other zipper tab to do the other side. So I'll be back. Okay, so it just occurred to me I forgot the zipper tabs. Sorry about that. But if you wanted to put them in, they just go at your thing and stick out, so there's something to grab onto when you're opening and closing your bag. I forgot them. I don't know, totally forgot. Got a bit sidetracked with I love top stitching, I think. Right. That's misbehaving already. I think I wound my bobbin too full. So when I do it too full, I get this loop, which is super annoying. Oh no, now look what I've done. So, I never actually normally do my zippers my bobbins completely full for this exact reason. They misbehave and it's not worth it. And I just have to throw out all that thread anyway. So, pop it on. And I've top stitched the second one now that I've got it. And where is my tray of hardware? So I need my last square ring. Again, you can use D-rings if you want to. You don't have to use exactly what I use. The options are there for both. Take this bad boy. It's got placement lines, which I like. You could also measure if you wanted to. And then stitch it into the seam allowance so that we won't see those stitches. Probably should have back stitched, but we're nearly up to joining it, so it's not a huge deal. Okay, so now we should be down to 4 pieces, 5 pieces, 4 pieces. No, I was right. This being 1, your front and back lining. No, 5 pieces. Oh my God, I can't count. Your front, your back, your lining front and back, and the gusset. So, I am going to cheat. And I am going to sew all of it together and then bind the raw edge that we'll be showing. So, to do that, I actually don't want my zipper pocket on the back because it's already got a zipper pocket and it'll make it too full. So I'm going to put my zipper pocket on the front piece. So all I want to do is join it together like this and stitch it together. And this may seem crazy, but you just have to bear with me. My light's nearly dead. I need to get more batteries. In a perfect world, I'd actually like this hardwired into the machine, so when I turn it on, they come on too. That would be amazing. Okay, so I'm just stitching within the seam allowance, joining up all the corners and all the edges and all the everything. So this will now be 1 piece. Needle down and pivot always. So I've got a knee lift on this machine that will control this. If you don't, just lift it up, lift it down. Okay. Trim off your tails. So that's now 1. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. So you're probably going to want to pin this because you need to bend all of this down out of the way. So I'm going to do this one lining side up so that I can have that like this and then just stitch along the edge. It's not impossible. It's just a little bit trickier. Oh my God, what am I doing? I'm stitching it the wrong way. I'm doing right sides together. That was silly. It's got to go on the back. Silly Tori. So I don't unpick. I don't use an unpick. I refuse. So I just clip the seams and slightly tug. You don't want to over tug because then you'll pull holes in your fabric. Luckily for me, this is all in the seam allowance. Just wasn't thinking then. I think I need some brain food. Should have stopped and had a snack. That's what I should have done. It's snack time. And I just happen to not have any here. Right. So wrong sides together so that it's going to be pretty. That makes more sense. I'm not even going to pull out all of those little bits, by the way. Part of it's because I'm lazy, and the other part of it is because it's in the seam allowance. You're not going to see it anyway. It's mainly because I'm lazy. Or efficient, as you all like to call me. Not that efficient, because I just sewed the thing on backwards. Don't be fooled. But very rarely is there a mistake you can't fix either. So that's, you know, one positive out of all of this. So I'm just pulling the lining. And then last bit. Ta-da! Yes. Tails in the bin. There's another random tail right there. Now, with these little suckers, I can see me snapping a needle today. That's how my day's going. So I'm going to take some masking tape and tape them out of my way. See, now they're not going to move into my seam. I'm not going to stitch them. I'm not going to break a needle. And I'm not going to curse on YouTube. We also need to bring these down. So one idea would be to tuck these into your pocket. Look at that. This one won't so much tuck, but again, we could probably get away with some more double-sided masking tape. You don't want to use double-sided tape, it's hard to get off. Masking tape is a really nice temporary thing. So if you don't leave it there for days on end, it's not going to leave residue on your bag. I know that's not the classiest look, but look, now I can get to everything. That's all tucked away. Happy days. So one thing that's going to potentially help you if you're a beginner sewer, and we're going to do it, is we're going to go along and we're going to baste these together as well. Then this will be one piece, they will be one piece, and then it's easy to join. If you're more advanced, you can probably skip this step, although it does make pinning a lot easier if you don't. And again, with these seams, I want to open them out because I want it to be flat. So I'm just doing a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And again, you don't have to do it this way. You could sew the outsides together, the insides together, flip the bag and stitch the hole shut. But I'm going to do it with binding. Because why not? Most of this is holding quite nicely. Now I'm back to the start. So that's one side done. I'm going to do the other side now before I attach anything, because it's easier. And around we go again. Now I'd just like to remind you that I haven't put any stabilizer in my gusset because I wanted it to be more flexible. I also think that this will be the easier way to seal the bag if you've got it in there, because otherwise the outsides are going to be super stiff. Okay, so that is now one piece. These are now one pieces. So the thick side is the back side. So we want to take the back side. I didn't put enough tape and he popped. That's okay. Just put more. Put it on itself and then tag it down. Behave yourself. Right, we're going to do this one first because I don't think that's going to last very long either. So we've got a front and a back. We're going to do the back. So between the 2 points should fit along the top of your bag. This is how this works. This is how we get the beautiful shape. So lots and lots and lots of clips. And the reason I'm using so many clips is because I'm fighting the handle because it popped again. I say popped because I've got no better word for it. But he popped off, so he doesn't want to stay down out of my way. So I want to get him done, and I want to stitch all of that beautifully together. Now again, I've got my mark here, or you might want to put this on so that we're getting everything straight and beautiful. And then we're going to start at that seam and go back and forth. And then we're going to stop at that seam again. And that's the top one done. So then I'm going to get my next seam and line it up there. And I think to help me turn the corners, I'm just going to clip just before the stitching. I think it's going to help. Alright, so then we're going to do the sides. And see how that sits nicer because I've clipped it? You probably can't see, but I can see. It sits much nicer. So I just clipped where the stitching stopped, like 1 stitch length back and probably 3/4 of the way up. That just gives this little bit enough room to turn that corner. But also keep in mind it is quite thick there because it's got all the other stuff. I can also take this off now because clearly it's not doing anything for me. That way. We also want our clips to face the gusset, always with the gusset. Alright, so now I'm going to stitch that bit. So I'm going to start right at my other stitches where I stopped. Feels like a good plan. And off we go. So now I'm going to get to that point and I'm going to lift and I'm going to pivot. And that's going to give me my nice sharp looking edge. Now, it's getting thicker here, so I'm going to slow right down to make sure that my machine doesn't eat it, because this is the side where I've put my vinyl pocket. So you've got a lot of thickness going on here. So I just want to make sure that I'm going nice and slow so it doesn't eat it. Like that. You also don't want to snap a needle into your eye. I always jump when I hear those noises because I have been flicked once with flying needle pieces and never again. So this is because I'm up to those strap connectors that I did also in vinyl. So I've just probably got too many layers for this machine. Therefore, my life advice to you is don't do vinyl strap connectors down the bottom. I got there that time. It's okay. Didn't get me in the eye, so that's the main thing, I guess. Trim your tails, because we always trim our tails. And then from the outside, have a look what's going on. It's all lining up beautifully. I'm very impressed. Not that I didn't think that it would, but it's always fun to look at. All right, more clips from Scully. Right, that goes there, there, there. What's in my way there? There we go. You might just have to kind of do this till it sits flat, but it will get there. Flipping down. Now it's getting tighter because it's just getting tighter. We've just got this last corner to put on and then the bottom. Again, this is going to be the difficult part. Worst case scenario is we'll switch over to Mr. Cylinder Arm. Now, before I do the bottom, I just want to... Oh, that didn't stitch. How annoying. Alright, so this corner's still giving me grief, so I'm going to come back and do it a third time, because third time's the charm, right? There we go. Now I'm just going to check that. Make sure it actually stitched. Excellent. So first suggestion I've got for you all is if you're on a domestic, I probably wouldn't make the whole thing out of vinyl because it's being just a little bit stubborn. Okay, so I'm doing the crap end first in case it doesn't want to work. And again, you can see how slowly I'm going over that connector so that I don't snap a needle. The rest of it's fine. It's just because there's so many layers right there. All right, you get to that seam, lift and pivot. And this may seem like a long way, and you might be going, why didn't you just pin all the way around? And the official answer is because it wouldn't sit as nice. Okay, so now that we're at the bottom, we're going to clip at the seams. And that one. And then this should maneuver to sit flat. Ta-da! Love it when it works. Also remembering this is the harder end of the two. I probably should have done the other side first. But that's all right. Tough bit's over now. So we're just going to stitch along the bottom. So I'm just going to push that down out of the way, start where I left off. You can manually crank a couple of stitches and then go back through the first hole if you're worried about snapping your needle in reverse, because I have done that too. Ha! All right. Trim your tails. And then, if you want to check it, you can come and look at your handiwork. Oh, look at that. Nailed it, is what we did. I've decided you're in this with me now. Right, so that's good. That's looking wonderful. So now it's time to put on the other side. So I'm going to flip it back in the wrong way. And actually, if I wanted to, I might bind this side now before I start the other side, because it's probably going to be easier to maneuver. So I am using webbing. This is, I don't know, I bought it secondhand, but it's got on a 22 mil black. It's a 200 meter roll. I've had it forever and clearly not getting through it. And it's from Windsor Trading. But again, I got it secondhand off a guy, so I don't even know if Windsor Trading's still a thing. So the first thing I want to do is I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to clip down my seam allowance a little bit, because otherwise that's not going to fit on. So I'm going to take my Class A scissors, because the other ones won't handle it, and trim like half off. I'll leave half of it there. Right. It gets easier as you get higher because there's less bits. The bottom's got, you know, strap connectors and pockets and all kinds of crazy stuff. Alright, so I'm just trimming off about half. And the reason I don't bind it and join it at the same time is because that would be hell. I find this way, while it may take longer theoretically, I reckon the other way would be longer because you'd keep missing bits and your lines wouldn't be glorious, and yeah, no thank you. This is the most time efficient way, whether you believe me or not. You just use more thread. and less clips. So I mean, yay. So I'm going to chop off that end because it's all frayy and yuck. And then I'm going to singe it in the blue part of the flame. If I had orange, orange would be a really cool color to bind this in, but I don't, so I'm not. Okay, so the idea is that this just sits over and hides your raw edges. So now all you need to do is in the tape, I'm going to show you, in the tape, in the middle, it's kind of like V's down to a center point in the middle of your tape. So all you have to do is put that bit on the edge, and then both sides will fold over and be even. And that's pretty much all I'm doing. This is definitely insanely thick, and I would not recommend doing this bag in all vinyl on a domestic, because I'm going to go and stitch this on my other one. That is insanely thick right there. But if you did less vinyl, it would be fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep doing this and I'll come back. Okay, so that machine didn't work out as well as I was hoping. I couldn't get you at an angle where you could see anything. So I've just come back to do it on this machine. I haven't done all of this, so I am going to show you what's going on. But basically, see here, it veered off. That machine actually comes with an attachment, so it will put this on for me. Because I wasn't using it, it kept veering off, and it was just not being my friend, and then I couldn't video when it was working. So we're just skipping it, and I will come back and do it on this machine. So you just slide it under, and it's just like basting before, but just further in. So this is the bit that's potentially not going to work. So this is that really, really thick bit that I was like, eek! But it's actually going through it fine, so I don't really know what I was worried about. Also, sometimes if you're having struggles with thicker seams, change your needle, because it could just be an old needle, and that's why it doesn't want to be a friend. Now I just have to unstitch this bit because it went wonky and way off on that other machine. So I'm going to get, it's also really noisy. So the rotary motor that was on this machine is now on that one. But there's a rattle, so it was also annoying me, which is why I deleted that part of the video. So I plan on, when I've got some spare cash, I'm going to get a motor for that, like this one, where it's silent. And I'm going to move it as well, so it's going to sit next to this machine, and then I will start doing more tutorials on it. So for people with walking feet, it will then look like more like your machine. Or if you've bought a cylinder arm to do bags, it's awesome, and I'll show you why. It'll just have to be in like a month or so when I can afford the thingo. So I've looked into the engines, they're like $200 and something. So I've started saving up parts of the money that I make from the hardware and stuff, and I will go and get one. Because most of the money from the hardware just goes back into buying more hardware. And the rest goes on bills like electricity, because I use a lot of it. So I'm hand cranking this bit because this is where all those really thick parts are, and I don't want it to kind of slip off the edge because it is so high. Right, they're still in the thick bit. There we go. I don't know if you saw that, but it just jumped down for me, so thank you. And then we back stitch, and we have, oh, see, I missed here. That's why that bit was easy. Okay. So So for the most part it is bound, except for that random thick bit that's apparently just my nemesis today. I don't know. So I'm going to unpick this as well. Happens to all of us. Actually, I think this is where I was on that machine. It doesn't like the clips in the way. But it has a cool binding piece. So maybe I'll bind the other side with the cool thing so you can watch. You can get binding things for this machine as well. I have one that does 1 inch, which is really, really fun. So it takes a 2-inch strip and double folds it so there's no raw edges, and then stitches it on for you and like places it. They are amazing, but you've just got to calibrate it first. You got to line it all up properly, which is like the time consuming part. So I used to use it while doing aprons. Because I'd have them all cut and I'd just change the color thread and then smash out all of the binding, which makes it a bit quicker. Because it saves you from all the ironing, which, you know, is the time consuming part. Because for one apron, it takes about 10 meters of binding. So I'm just cutting the threads, and it's taking so long because the threads are really long, thick. So I'm actually just going to cut this bit off and replace it with another bit, because I'm now just hacking at it for no real reason. So I'm going to chop that bit off like that. That's the beauty of binding. If it's broken, just chop it off and replace it. So what you want to do, again, melt your end if you haven't already. That'll stop it fraying and you can actually just stick it straight on, but I'm going to fold that over. Actually, no, I'm not, because it won't fray, because I've melted it. So I only need a piece that's about this long. So again, melt it. And that's if you're using poly webbing. If you're not using poly webbing, just tuck under the raw edge. So we're going to stick it under, we're going to stitch forward and back stitch, and I'm just on a joining length stitch. So I'm on 2.5, and then we're going to stitch along. And then as we get to this really thick bit, we're going to slow down and hope that it behaves itself. And I always move my head away a little bit because I'm just really worried it's going to bite me in the face. And none of that stitched because the thread snapped. Okay, I will have to do this off camera on the other one because it's the thick part. And then we'll come back and join the other side. So again, we're going to take our beautiful outside and attach it to right sides together. So vinyl sides together. We're going to take a bunch of clips. We're going to clip it. We're going to stitch it. That's probably an overkill in clips, but whatever. That's cool. I've also put them all on the wrong way because I should always put them gusset side up. And then back stitch when we get to that seam and stop and trim. I'm just doing a little bit, but the end of my scissors are always sharper. And then I'm going to take this side seam and match it up with the side point, because that's where it lives. And then this should maneuver and fit between point A and B if you've done all your seams correctly. And then you can come down and do the bottom as well. And then clip up, and then we're going to stitch that side. So this side's a lot easier because I'm not really fighting everything on this side. I don't have any like strap connectors. I don't have the pockets giving me grief, so this side's definitely easier. Alright, in we go. Stitch, back stitch. And up we go, and then we get to that seam, and then we up and pivot. And then back stitch. Pull it out, trim your tail. Other side. So again, match up this point with the side seam. And yes, I'm going to keep saying it. Because the point to point should all match wonderfully if you did the right seam allowance. And then down to the end. So I'm actually clipping that 1/2 inch back from the end of this bit, because that's our seam allowance. Doesn't reach all the way to the bottom. If you try, it won't fit. Just FYI. Okay, then I'm going to do those two sides, starting where I left off with the stitching, and then back stitching, and then off we go. And then pivot when we get to that seam. Make sure your needle's down when you try and pivot, or you'll find that the bag just wanders off. When you get to that seam, back stitch. And then again, we're going to trim it. It is quite thick. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is thick. Alright, and then you just straighten that out and it should all fit wonderfully. Look at that. More clips facing the gusset. And boom. And then back stitch. And then stitch along. And then back stitch. Trim off your tails, not that it matters, because now we're going to go and trim off 1/2 of that seam allowance so that we can get our binding on. And this side should be much easier to bind because there's no random extra bits in the seams. I'm going to go back and fix up that other side after the video's over. Just because I'm going to set up the other machine and it's going to take me ages. But it'll be worth it. If you've got like an industrial Juki, like a heavy duty walking foot one, you'll be able to manage this no problem. But I wouldn't recommend this much thickness on the domestic. I mean, you can give it a go. I'm one of those people that'll always give it a go. I just don't know how successful you'll be. Alright, so I'm going to fray this edge because I can already see it's going to give me grief. And then I'm just going to bend it over and clip it on. Lots of clips. Whoops. Just dropping everything, don't mind me. So the more clips you've got, the more sturdy it's going to be. Like this. Sorry, I like to clip in my lap. But I'm literally just folding it in half. So this would be the same thing as if you're using bias tape. You just fold it in half, like the double fold kind, that is. In the center. I actually have this binding in like 4 colors, but they're weird colors. So they very rarely get used. I've got like a weird blue, maroon, yellow, and black. Alright, and around we go. You could do it in sections if you wanted to. I find it easier just to do it all at once, especially this side. The other side I did in sections because it was misbehaving. I'm nearly back to the start. So because this is polyester, I can just melt it and it won't fray. But if you're using something that does fray, what you do is you just cut past it like this. And then melt the end. Well, not melt the end because you don't have that. Right, sorry. I'm going to melt the end. And then you just tuck the raw end under and pop it down like that. And then just stitch over all of it. So I'm just going to start wherever. So apparently right here, because that's where I feel like starting. And then off we go. So back stitch. And then don't pull the clips off till you're right at them, so that it hasn't got a chance to shift. You also may want to get your stiletto and kind of hold it down. So as you take off this, you can then use your stiletto to hold it in place. Just make sure you don't stitch your stiletto. And you're going to have more troubles on your corners than your straights, because straights tend to just sit where they're told. It's your corners that'll want to try and shift. But don't stitch your finger. It's not worth it. And I'm just pushing this part of the bag out of the way as I go. Turn and pivot. See, this side's going much nicer than the other one. But that is mostly due to my fabric choice. And then my machine choice. Urgh, come on, clips. The clips are definitely earning their keep today. They don't want to slide off like normal because it's so thick. They want more effort put in. How rude of them. Alright, back stitch. Clip. See, that side's lovely. Look at that. And so now, you just grab the bottom after I clip that tail off. Where did you come from? I don't know. Anyway. Push the base through. Now this, the more stabilizer you put on your bag, the more you're gonna struggle with this. So I've only got my stabilizer on the front and the back. The pattern actually recommends to stick it all the way through the gusset as well, which you definitely could do. But this bit's going to be super tricky because it's already super tricky for me and I'm good at this. Alright. The back, push the corners out as we go. The front, do the same thing. See, it does look really nice though, guys. I'm going to use my knees to hold onto this back bit here and then pull like that. See, I just needed the equivalent of a third hand. Okay, so then we're just going to make sure we push out all of those cornery bits. I'm going to use my handy dandy flute cleaner to get right in there and shove it. Which sounds bad, but it works. And then shove that side and the other side. Oh, look at that, guys. Oh, I missed the back. Oh. Ah, this back is like not my friend. But it stands up by itself. It's got a side pocket. And so then you just need to grab some webbing and work out how long you want the adjustable straps. So it doesn't actually say, so you can just pick whatever. So I will just pick, I'm going to pick 28 inches because, you know, I'm looking at it. And chop. And then do a second one the same length because there's two handles. And then we just grab our strap connectors and sew them on, up and down and on. And the other one, so we go around the inner bar and then stitch it down like that. Trim that off. Trim off all your tails so that it's not all hanging out. What is going on today? Something's not stitching, that's what's going on. I ran out of bobbin thread. Again. Look at me go. Here's some more black that I prepared earlier, apparently. It's just a little bit, but it'll do for the purposes of what I'm trying to do. So, let's try that for a third time, because third time's the charm. Oh. So that's all just coming undone. So I will have to chop that much off the other one. And I need to melt this end. So this is the curse of polyester. It just likes melting. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tuck the raw end under and then stitch it down like that so that I can stop having issues with it. Because that'd be nice. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Love it. So then we want to go melt this end again. It's misbehaving again. So I'm going to hold it with the join facing me. I'm going to go through the bottom loop and then through my strap connector and then through the top loop and stitch that down. And then it's adjustable. So I'm going to learn from my mistakes and tuck that under and then stitch it down like that. And then we just do the same to the other side and your bag is done. Right, look Look at that. Fully adjustable. I'm going to stop the video there and just do the other one later because my strap connector has come out of my seam because I've been hacking at that section so much. But the bag is done. I hope this was helpful. Oh, and Hobby just got home. Perfect timing. All right, bye guys.